Okay, good morning. Our lesson for today is about graph of polynomial function, which is under MELC 14. So are you familiar with the place shown in the map? The map shows the western part of Cavite. This is taken from the Google Earth. When we take a closer look to the coastline, this will be the picture. What can you say about the picture? Can we see some patterns? What if we trace the coast with a line? Like this. The line gives us a picture of the graph of a polynomial function. If it is drawn in a Cartesian plane, then we will have this figure. The graph of a polynomial function is a smooth curve. In graphing polynomial function, you need the following. The first one is x and y intercepts, behavior of the graph, multiplicity of roots, and number of turning points. So let us have an example. Let us sketch the graph of y equals x cubed minus x squared minus 10x minus 8. So let us now solve first for x and y intercept. Okay. Pag sinabi nating x-intercept, these are the points in the graph that passes through the x-axis. These are the values of x when y equals 0. Ito yung mga points na matatagpuan natin sa x-axis. Pag sinabi nating y-intercept, these are the points in the graph that passes through the y-axis. These are the values of y when x is equal to 0. So let us solve. To find the x-intercept of y equals x cubed minus x squared minus 10x minus 8, since ang given natin ay hindi pa naka-factored form and we need to find the x-intercept, kailangan muna natin siyang i-factor. So let us factor this completely. So you may use synthetic division, remainder, and factor theorem. It's up to you. Okay, so the factored form of this polynomial function is y equals the quantity of x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 4. After ma-factor ang ating polynomial, let us equate y to 0. So we have 0 equals x plus 1 times x plus 2 times x minus 3. And then equate each factor to 0 and then solve for the value of x. So we will have x plus 1 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So let us now solve for the values of x. So for the x plus 1 equals 0, the value of x is negative 1 and the intercept is negative 1, 0. So for x plus 2 equals 0, we have x equals negative 2 and the x-intercept is negative 2, 0. And then we have x equals positive 3, so we have the intercept 3, 0. We are done with the x-intercepts. Now let us find the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept of this polynomial function, let x be equal to 0. So let us substitute 0. So we have y equals 0 cubed minus 0 squared minus 10 times 0 minus 8. So the answer is y equals negative 8. Therefore, our y-intercept is 0, negative 8. Okay, we are done with the x and y-intercept. Let us now determine the behavior of the graph. To determine the behavior of the graph of y equals x cubed minus x squared minus 10x minus 8, we need to identify first the n or the degree of the polynomial and a sub n or the leading coefficient. So in our example, our n or degree, or that is the highest exponent, that is 3. And our leading coefficient Pag sinabing leading coefficient, ito yung number katabi ng variable with the highest exponent. So, ang katabi ng ating x cube ay 1. So, we have n equals 3 and a sub n natin, that is equal to 1. Okay, so ang behavior of the graph, so if n is even, or yung degree, and a sub n, or the leading coefficient, is greater than 0, then the graph comes down from the extreme left and goes up to the extreme right. So, ayan ang itsura nun. If n is odd and a sub n is greater than 0, the graph comes up from the extreme left and goes up to the extreme right. If n is even and a sub n is less than 0, the graph comes up from the extreme left and goes down to the extreme right. If n is odd and a sub n is less than 0, the graph comes down from the extreme left and goes down to the extreme right. So since n is equal to 3 and a sub n is equal to 1, the graph comes up from the extreme left and goes up to the extreme right. So ang n natin ay 3, which is odd, and then 1 is greater than 0, so magiging ganito ang behavior ng graph. Okay, next, let us discuss the multiplicity of roots. Multiplicity refers to the number of times the root or zeros appear in the solution. So if a root or 0 is odd multiplicity, the graph of x crosses the x-axis at x-intercepts. If a root or 0 is an even multiplicity, the graph of x is tangent to the x-axis at x-intercept. So, titignan nyo lang yung multiplicity of roots. Kung meron ba tayong roots na naulit or doble. So, kung halimbawa, multiplicity 3, yung 3, that is 3 times, ang multiplicity na yun ay add. So, pag nakita nyo na yun ay add, it will cross the x-axis. Ibig sabihin, dadaanan niya lang yung x-axis. Pero kung halimbawa naman, ang roots ay with even multiplicity, like 2, 4, 6, so on and so forth, it is tangent to the x-axis. Pag sinabi natin tangent to the x-axis, ibig sabihin, magkakaroon siya ng turning point sa x-axis. Tatama siya doon sa mismong x-axis, and then saka siya liliko. So, makikita niyo yan mamaya kapag nag-graph na po tayo. Okay, since walang naulit, or wala tayong roots na may multiplicity, let us now proceed to the number of turning points. Pag sinabi natin turning points, ito yung pagliko o yung magiging bilang ng kurba or curve ng ating graph. So, it can be determined by n minus 1. Since our n is equal to 3, then the number of turning points is 2. Because 3 minus 1, the answer is 2. Okay? So, after determining the important concepts in graphing the polynomial function, let us now sketch the graph. Okay, ang ating x-intercepts ay negative 1, 0. Plot natin yung points. So, negative 1, 0. Nandito siya. And then, negative 2, 0. And 4, 0. Yan. We are done plotting the x-intercepts. Let us now plot the y-intercept. We have 0, negative 8. Okay. According to our concepts, the graph comes up from the extreme left and then goes up to the extreme right. So, magiging ganito dapat ang itsura ng ating graph. And kailangan ang number of turning points natin ay 2. So, let us now connect or sketch the graph. Alright. So, ayan ang itsura ng ating graph. So may curve dito, we have 1. And then another curve here. So we have 2 turning points. And tama po ang naging behavior ng ating graph. Okay, I hope you understand the first one. Let us have another example. Sketch the graph of p of x equals square of the quantity x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 2 times the quantity of x minus 3. Since naka-factored form na ang ating polynomial function, madali na nating makukuha ang ating x-intercept. Okay, let us now equate each factor to 0. So we have square of the quantity of x plus 1 equals 0. Another one, we have x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. And x minus 3 equals 0. Let us now solve for the values of x. So we have x equals negative 1 with the multiplicity 2 because of the exponent 2. And the intercept is negative 1, 0. We also have x equals negative 2 and the x-intercept is negative 2, 0. We have x equals 2 and the intercept is 2, 0. X equals 3, so we have 3, 0. And then, let us solve for the y-intercept. Let x be equal to 0, so we have y equals square of the quantity of 0 plus 1 times the quantity of 0 plus 2 times the quantity of 0 minus 2 times the quantity of 0 minus 3. So we will have y equals 1 squared times 2 times negative 2 times negative 3. And the answer is y equals 12 and the y-intercept is 0, positive 12. Okay, let us now proceed to the behavior of the graph. Since this is our polynomial function, n is equal to 5, which is odd number, and our a sub n, or the leading coefficient, is greater than 0 or positive, so the graph comes up from the extreme left and goes up to the extreme right. So ganyan ang itsura ng magiging graph natin. And then, multiplicity of roots, we have x equals negative 2. Nakalagay kanina, meron siyang multiplicity 2. 2 is even, so it means that the graph of x is tangent to the x-axis at x-intercept. And then, number of turning points, since ang degree natin is 5, so minus 1, we have 4 turning points. So we are done with the important concepts, and now we are ready to graph our function. Okay, so plot natin ang ating mga x-intercept. Okay, we have negative 1, 0 dito. Multiplicity 2, and then negative 2, 0. And also we have 2, 0 dito. 3, 0 dito. And then ang ating y-intercept ay 0, positive 12. I think here yon. So estimate natin ng ganyan. And then our multiplicity is tangent. Even multiplicity yon. Magkakaroon tayo ng turning point pagdating sa negative 1, 0. And then, ang dapat na itsura ng graph natin ay counts up from the extreme left, galing sa left, tataas, and then, taas pa din pa right. At dapat meron tayong 4 na turning points. So, let us now connect the points. Sketch na natin. So, we have here, oh, forgive me kung hindi perfect ang aking graph. Okay, so here, and then, kailangan magta-tangent sa negative 1. So, magkakaroon ng turning point dito, kukurba. Aakyat, dadaanan yon, dadaanan, dadaanan. Alright. And then, lagyan natin ng arrowhead, kabilaang dulo. Alright. So, bilangin natin ang ating turning point. Dapat ang turning point natin ay 4. Okay. So, we have 1 here, 1. Another 1 here, 2, 3, and then we have 4. So, nasatisfy natin ang condition. And also, nag-tangent. Dapat magkakaroon ng turning point sa negative 1, 0. So, ayun. Let us have another example para mas masanay tayong mag-graph ng polynomial function. Sketch the graph of y equals negative square of the quantity x plus 1 times x minus 1. Let us equate each factor to 0 to find the x-intercept. We have square of the quantity x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. So solve for the values of x. X equals negative 1, multiplicity 2, and the intercept is negative 1, 0. Another value of x is x equals 1, and the intercept is 1, 0. So to solve for the y-intercept, so substitute 0. So we have y equals negative times square of the quantity 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 1. Y equals negative 1 squared times negative 1. And the answer is y equals positive 1, or simply we have the y-intercept 0, 1. Okay, let us now proceed to the behavior of the graph. Okay, so ang n natin ay odd, which is 3. And then ang ating a sub n, or the leading coefficient, is less than 0. So the graph comes down from the extreme left and goes down to the extreme right. So ganito ang magiging itsura ng ating graph. And then, multiplicity of roots. We have x equals negative 1, multiplicity 2. That is even multiplicity, which means the graph of x is tangent to the x-axis at x-intercept. Number of turning points, we have n minus 1. So, n natin ay 3. So, minus 1, we have 2 turning points. So, let us now sketch the graph. Ang ating x-intercept ay negative 1, 0. Plot natin ang point. And then, we also have positive 1, 0. So, ayan. And then, y-intercept ay 0, positive 1. So, medyo parang magiging maliit lang ang ating graph. Okay. So, the root or 0 is an even multiplicity, which means the graph is tangent to the x-axis at ang ating x-intercept na yon ay negative 1, 0. Kailangan sa negative 1, 0 magkakaroon ng turning point or magkakaroon tayo ng curve doon sa negative 1, 0. At kailangan masatisfy natin ang given na ganito ang magiging behavior ng ating graph. So let us now sketch the graph. So let us start here sa left side and then magta-tangent sa negative 1. So pagdating sa negative 1, magto-turn and then connect dito sa ating y-intercept. And then, bababa dito sa ating positive 1, 0. So, ganyan ang itsura ng ating graph. So, parehas po ba dun sa ating nakitang behavior? So, that is correct. And then, let us count the turning points. So, we have 1 here sa negative 1, 0. And then, another 1 here dito. Alright? So, ganyan ang itsura ng ating graph. So, I hope you learned this lesson. I want you to try to answer this on your own. And thank you for listening. Again, I'm Teacher Alva.